فرهنگ رو به معنای یک فرهنگ ویژه اگر بگیریم من بهش اعتقاد ندارم، و اینکه فرهنگ یک کلمه جهانیه و اگر محدودش بکنیم به فرهنگ خاص قومی خودمون، من معتقد نیستم که با طریق اون میتونم با کشورهای دیگه با آدمای دیگه ارتباط برقرار کنم. اون فرهنگی که الان بهش اعتقاد داری، بهش اشاره کردی و من اعتقاد دارم بهش، اون یک فرهنگ رابطه انسانیه که من عمیقاً معتقدم که آدم‌ها با وجود میگم زبان مختلف و جغرافیای مختلف و مذهب مختلف و فرهنگ‌های گوناگون در اصالت اون خصوصیات اصلی با هم دیگه شریکن و خیلی خوب هم دیگه رو درک میکنن. من سعی میکنم که با اون زبان ارتباط برقرار کنم با کسایی که تماشاگر فیلم هم هستن.
First of all, I wish to define the very concept of culture. For me, culture is something that is common to every human being on earth. Not careless, not paying attention to what the language is, what the period of time in which they live, not the religion they have, not their culture in another meaning might be. If we have a definition of a culture as something tribal and something ethnic, again, I feel that it closes the audience to which you're able to address as an artist. If I try and relate to people and to audiences all over the world, it's because I do have faith in the fact that the essence is common. The essence of what a human being can feel is common no matter what the circumstances under which they live are.
I think I can relate to that. I was not trying to define differences in the culture, but rather in the way culture is being appreciated. There are traditions in appreciation of culture, and we had that in Europe as well. We had periods like Sturm und Drang, we had Romanticism, where people reacted differently to the products of culture, to what the artists did. And I think there's still a difference in the way people appreciate poems in Farsi, for example, the Sufi poems, and people react to things like films with sentimentality or sobriety. I think that there's a difference, and that's not so much a tribal culture, but something of a period.
متوجه شدم. من بعد پاسخ یه خورده کاملتری میدادم، حالا میدم. عرض کنم که با این شروع میکنم که آخرین کتاب شعری که داشتم به ناشر فرانسوی دادم هفته پیش و دیدم که گفت ما 500 تا از این کتاب قرار چاپ بکنیم، البته هیچ پولی هم بابت حق التألیف نمیدیم. منم قبول کردم برای اینکه خوب میدونستم که شعر در اروپا مشتری نداره اونچنان که در ایران داره. به همین دلیل و این کتاب در ایران همین الان زیر چاپ 5500 تا چاپ میکنن. بنابراین باور دارم که کشوری مثل کشور ما هم سرزمین تولید شعر، هم سرزمین در واقع مخاطب شعر، هر دوشون. و اینا از یه چیزی میاد به نظرم، درد و شعر یه جوری به هم دیگه آمیخته است. شاید در اروپا اونقدر نیاز ندارین شما به اینکه شعر بخونین و راجع به رنج‌های عمیق خودتون با کسی گفتگو بکنین، یعنی شاعر با شما و شما در تنهایی خودتون با خودتون.
Yes, your question deserved a more complete an answer, and I'll try to complete it. Maybe I can complete it just by a personal anecdote, something that happened to me. There is this very last poetry book, poems, that was hardly out of press in Iran. And I brought it to France, to my French publisher. And my French publisher took it and said that he was going to publish it, but that there was no copyright on it for me, and that they would have 500 prints of it in France. Whereas the same book in Iran, there was 5,500 prints of it. And I think the reason of this difference is that he tells me there's no market for poetry in France. And the reason probably why Iran is both the land where poetry is produced, but also where poetry is appreciated and is related to, is probably because there is a very strong link between poetry and pain. I think maybe the reason why, as you say, you don't react the same way to poetry, or you don't sit together and appreciate poetry together, is because you don't need to. You don't need to recognize human sufferings in the same that maybe we do need, Iranian population needs nowadays. So this exchange on suffering is the one that the poet does with himself, and is the one that you can do once reading it.
اینم که گفتم مربوط به حالا نمیشه. شاعر ایرانی یک تاریخ شعر داریم ما مربوط به هزاران سال پیش.
And this is not just about now. This is about the tradition of poetry in Iran, which has been there for centuries and centuries.
آره ما خوشبختانه، یا نمیدونم بگم بدبختانه، تکلیفم باش روشن نیست، به جای هر چیزی که نداریم شعر داریم.
Fortunately, or unfortunately, I don't know yet, if there is one thing that we don't lack in Iran, it's poetry.
I was asking this because there's one thing about your films that has struck me from the very beginning, from the first films I've seen. They are precise, they're to the point, they can be extremely moving, but they also have a kind of a distance, like you are trying to avoid sentimentality at all costs. You try not to trigger things, but to make people see and feel and understand, rather than just push them into the movement. Indian film, Indian entertainment cinema does that all the time. It just pushes people into feeling and they almost drown in it. And you seem to avoid this at all costs with your films.
بسیار ممنونم از اینکه به این نکته اشاره کردی. اگه بگم یه کمپلیمان تو مجموعه چیزی که میتونستی من بدی همین بود. برای اینکه این چیزی که به شدت مراقبت میکنم، هیچ کاری به اندازه احساساتی کردن دیگران مسئولیت نداره. حالا شما چه در مقام یک فیلمساز این کارو بکنین، چه در مقام یک سیاستمدار این کارو بکنین، چه در مقام یک پارتنر این کارو بکنین، چجوری مطمئنین که میتونین این مسئولیت رو تا آخر ادامه بدین؟ و به همین دلیل من اعتقادم بر این که به حدی ما میتونیم این مسئولیت رو، این احساس رو در دیگران ایجاد بکنیم که مطمئن باشیم پاسخگو و جوابگو هستیم. در این صورت یک امتیاز دیگه هم داره، و اون که ما همیشه خودمون رو در معرض قضاوت اون قرار دادیم و هیچ وقت تسویه حساب قطعی نکردیم. همیشه به اون شانس رو میدیم که به ما خوب نگاه کنه، ما رو خوب ارزیابی بکنه از هر نوع امکان سوء استفاده من نسبت به اونها، به عنوان حالا چه به عنوان یک پالیتیکمن، یا به عنوان یک فیلمساز، یا به عنوان یک رابطه رو در رو. این فرصت رو همیشه به من داده برای اینکه من خودم بمونم و فکر نکنم که من همه خرجامو کردم با حالا موقع بهره برداریه. خیلی امتیاز داره که ما به طور منطقی با هم دیگه برخورد کنیم، حتی توی رابطه‌های احساسی. و من این رو خوشحالم که این استنباط در طی سالها از فیلم‌های من بیرون اومده.
Well, this time I would say thank you very much. If there was one compliment I would have fished for, it was that one. Because I think there is not any higher responsibility than the one of provoking feelings on someone else. Either it is your audience as a film director, or the population as a politician, or even your partner in a private relationship. When you push the other into a feeling, when you provoke a feeling in the heart of the person who's in front of you, you must be aware of the responsibility that you're taking. And you must always have in mind until where and when are you able to stand for the emotion that you're provoking. And I think the only way of having a healthy relationship, no matter the nature of the relationship, but the only way of making it healthy is to accept the fact that the distance with the other is enough for the other to judge you and to be able to see you, and not for you not to abuse of the situation and of the feeling that you have suggested or you have demanded from the other. So if my films give this impression through the years, this is really something I can be happy about.
I think deservedly, yes, because when I see your films, I never feel pushed in a certain direction. I always have the feeling that there's something on offer and I can react to it. Now, I would like to open the whole thing to the audience as well. So if you have questions, or if you would like to tell them whether you like the films or not and why not, or what you do like, please feel free. We have a microphone here. So, take the microphone closer, please. Last time you were difficult to understand.
Sure. I just wanted to know if, my understanding of your films is that you have great hope for future generation of Iranians. Since your first films, I have always felt that you are putting a weight or you are putting some emphasis on the role that children can play in Iran. And maybe by children, I don't mean children as their age, but the generation of Iranians that should achieve something by rebelling against the norm that is in Iran or the traditions. Am I right in understanding the nature of your films in that sense? Because I have gathered that based on the role that you give to your children and the role that you give to their parents. And to me, the children are the future generation and the parents are the traditions that you are trying to challenge, or you hope that this generation would challenge.
درسته این برداشت، ولی اون دوره‌ای بود که این فیلم‌ها رو برای بچه‌ها می‌ساختن و برای یه انستیتویی که برای بچه‌ها تولید می‌کردن. به نظرم یه ذره الان شعاری اومد. مطمئن نیستم که این حرف الان بهش اعتقاد داشته باشم، چون باید شرایطی برای رسیدن به یه همچون مقام، یه شرایطی فراهم باشه تا ما امید داشته باشیم به بچه‌های نسل آتی، در حالی که تو شرایطی که همه عصبی، متوقع و ناامید دارن تربیت میشن، ما چجوری میتونیم یه شعار به این قشنگی رو راجع به آینده بدیم؟
Well, yes, you are right. This thing that you say about the generation is quite right, but I guess it's right about a certain period of the films that I made, which were the films that I made for an institute, which was the Kanun. And in this film, maybe there was a generational aspect because my films were made for children, about children, but also for children. But now, as I hear you saying that, it sounds a bit like a motto, as if there was a claim about something that I cannot recognize myself in, because you need a background for that. It depends on how this generation is brought up. If this generation is brought up just like some demanding, profoundly unsatisfied and hopeless generation, then it is very hard yourself to found on all your hopes on the fact that this generation is going to challenge the traditions. So I don't know. I at least I don't want to. I'm not sure if I hear it like a motto, I wouldn't share it.